A couple of years ago, famed car reviewer Doug Muro said that the Mitsubishi Mirage is the worst brand new car that you can buy. Then he went on to talk about its features and amenities or lack thereof about the US spec Mitsubishi Mirage. Ever since watching that video, I got a little bit curious about this vehicle, and so in this video, we will take a showroom tour of the Philippine spec Mitsubishi Mirage GLS to see if it's truly the worst brand new car you can buy. Then at the end of the video, you can decide if the current gen is worth picking up or if you should wait for the next generation. Let's do this. Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to another car review. If you're new to my channel, I hope you hit that subscribe button and become part of the Reagan's Rides family. If you're my subscriber already, thank you so much for your support by watching this video. I hope you also give it a like. Also, special thanks to City Motors Makati for giving us this awesome opportunity to feature the top spec Mitsubishi Mirage GLS. If you have a need for any Mitsubishi vehicle and you're in the area, you may head on down here to City Motors Makati and check them out. For any inquiries, you may also contact the person in my description below. Now, before we go on and bash Daddy Dog for his proclamation, let's put things in its proper perspective. If you were to drive this thing in the freeways of South California, then yes, it might as well be the worst brand new car you can buy. But then we live in the Philippines, and in this country, driving a small city car is a huge advantage, especially with our tight city roads, pretty similar to the cities of Europe. The Mirage also has a very affordable price point, so you couldn't really expect the same level of cabin amenities and creature comforts that Doug Muro has gotten accustomed to. This top-spec Mitsubishi Mirage GLS retails for only 869,000 Philippine pesos. But since the newer generation has been unveiled in Thailand last year, you can expect some pretty awesome deals on these current generation units right now. To know more about those deals, you may as well contact City Motors in my description below. Now we get two body styles of the Mirage in the country, which is a hatchback and a sedan. What we have here is the G4 sedan variant, and the front fascia is totally different from the more sporty hatchback. While the hatchback gets a wide open gaping front bumper opening, this G4 sedan gets a more sedate and traditional bumper design where you have a center front grille here and a couple of separate fog light housings on the side. Now, both the hatchback and the sedan gets these halogen headlights here in a housing that is so huge, it looks like an anime character. The top spec GLS also gets halogen fog lights here and a chrome strip design at the bottom that looks like DRLs. But trust me guys, they're not DRLs, they're just made to look that way. It's part of the econo city car nature of the G4 Mirage. Now, you still don't get that dynamic shield front fascia that can also be found in its other Mitsubishi stablemates. And if that thing's important to you, you may as well wait for the next generation Mirage. Overall, the front fascia of this G4 sedan is cute and familiar, especially since this current generation model has been in production for 8 years running now. Now, as far as small city cars go, the G4 silhouette is pretty familiar. You get the same 3-box sedan design here with a few body lines and streaks thrown in to perk things up. The top spec GLS though gets LED turn signals on your side mirrors and a pretty cool chrome accent here on your front fender. You see, the lower variants of the Mirage gets their turn signals on the front fender, and Mitsubishi decided to just use the same front fender stamping machine. So instead of just getting a hole here, they decided to plug it in with this pretty cool chrome design. It's a pretty smart move if you were to ask me. Now for your wheels and tires, you get 15-inch wheels here that are wrapped in 185/55 R15 tires. Behind those wheels, you got ventilated disc brakes up front and rear drum brakes at the rear. Now for ground clearance, it's a respectable 170 millimeters, which is perfectly decent for a city car. Now the Mirage G4 gets a pretty standard rear end, although it did receive a mild refresh in 2018. You do see that in the taillights and the rear bumper, but these taillights are still incandescent taillights, they're still not LEDs. You do get a chrome strip down here in the center to add a little bit more bling in your Mirage G4. Now, if there's one advantage that the G4 has over its hatchback sibling, then that would be an actual trunk resides at the rear end of this vehicle. So that means that you get a cavernous trunk space. Now, the good thing here is the top spec GLS gets this key fob, so opening the trunk would be as quick as pressing the button twice. So when you open the trunk, you'll see that you've got 487 liters of trunk capacity, which is pretty much a class leader in the small city car segment. In fact, at 487 liters, it's even bigger than some of the trunk space of some compact crossovers out there in the market. Now, to see how it measures up in terms of luggage, I brought with me my medium-sized luggage right here. So we have this medium-sized luggage, and let's see how it fits inside the Mirage G4. As you can see, it could easily be swallowed by this cavernous trunk, and you could even mount it or put your luggage in a vertical orientation like that. So that means that you could put a second one here and some other small items to the side. Unfortunately, the Mirage G4's second row seat back doesn't really tumble down. So that means if you're transporting larger items than luggage, then you'll have to get a little bit more creative when it comes to transporting your stuff. Now, both the G4 and the hatchback get pretty much the same engine. What we have here is a 1.2-liter 3-cylinder Mavic engine that is good for 77 horses and 100 Newton meters of torque. Now, the top spec GLS is mated to a CVT transmission, so it's pretty much a city slicker. The combination of that CVT, the tiny engine, and the lightweight of the vehicle would translate to a phenomenal level of fuel economy, and you would be right. Quoted fuel economy figures for the Mirage G4 stands at 21 kilometers per liter, which is pretty solid for a small city car. Now, when you get inside the cabin of your G4, you're greeted by a pretty basic and Spartan interior, which is pretty much par for the course with these budget city cars. The top spec GLS, though, as I mentioned, gets a key fob, and that means that you get an engine start button that's found here on the left side of your dashboard. This is a mild surprise given the price point and the category that this G4 comes in. Now, for your seats, you have fabric seats here, and I must say, guys, that Mitsubishi makes some of the comfier seats in the industry, and I love the fact that they put some nice textured soft material in the center of the seats that makes it softer than it actually is. However, your center door locking mechanism here is still the same design as the ones found in Doug De Muro's video, and that means that you still don't get that red center strip that tells you that your doors are unlocked. However, it's not really a big issue, guys, because these are central door locks, and yeah, you could just lock the door and boom, you're okay. And it's also textured, at least in the unlock position, so there you go. Now, your steering wheel is also wrapped in leather, but the leather is purely on the durable side, if I must say. And it's kind of weird because you have this glossy piano black finish accents that are found in the lower half of your steering wheel. They actually look quite good, guys, but these would attract fingerprints in no time. Now, the GLS also gets this buttons here for your infotainment system, for mode and all that, so that's also pretty good. And when you go to your instrument gauges, you get a fully analog instrument gauge cluster that's pretty bright and quite legible. However, there is quite a little bit of a quirk here in the instrument gauges because the right side is a complete blank, and that's where your warning lights come in. However, by taking a closer look at this instrument gauge cluster, you'll see that it doesn't have an engine temperature gauge. That's right, guys. If ever your Mirage G4 is already starting to overheat, there is absolutely no way you'll know that you're already overheating until the check engine light comes on. Yeah, so it's kind of weird that way. It should have gone into that right side gauge, which is a complete blank, but well, they didn't really put it there. Now, from your gauges, you move on to your infotainment system, and I'm happy to see here that you have a 6.75-inch touchscreen infotainment system with Bluetooth, and guess what, guys? It doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. The thing is, it also has a rear view camera, and your display comes out here, and the rear view camera display is pretty good. It's pretty clear. Now, when you dive deeper into your infotainment system, you'll see that there's an option for an iPod connectivity. It's not an iPad connectivity, but rather iPod. Now, considering that this is a 2020 model and the last real iPod was phased out in 2017, then yes, that would be more of a throwback, or credited to nostalgia that you still have an iPod connectivity there. Now below this really nice looking infotainment system, you've got a fully automatic climate control system here. It's only a single zone though, and you have a couple of cup holders and a few charging ports down here at the bottom part. Now since we have cup holders here, we're going to try the clean canteen test. Let's see if it fits my clean canteen. Okay, it fits inside. However, the height of my clean canteen means that the top end would be hitting the dashboard. So yeah, but it still fits, still quite secure. So I would say that this is a marginal pass for my clean canteen test. Now when you move from your cup holders, you'll see that you have your gear shifter here, and this GLS is a CVT. The thing is, if you look at the gear shifter, you've got the usual gated shift areas like the park, reverse, neutral, and drive, but there's another letter, a letter B. If you look at the letter B, at first I was thinking, what does it stand for? And I was thinking it probably stands for badass, you know, like a sport mode in other cars. But then apparently upon further research, the B stands for brake, which is totally the opposite of a sport mode, guys. So apparently you shift it into B or brake mode if you're going downhill and you want to keep the gear in place, and that way you use an engine brake. That's why they say it's a brake, because you're using engine brake to slow down your car. Yeah, that should help preserve your brakes, but that's a pretty cool quirk. B for brake. Should have been badass though. Anyway, from your shift area here, you get a traditional handbrake, and you don't have a center armrest here. Fortunately, guys, you can have it spec'd in the dealer that if you want to have a center armrest there, it could come straight from the factory with a center armrest option. That should make your drive a little bit more comfortable. Speaking of comfort, guys, I also noticed that the door panel elbow rest is not padded. It's not made of padded material, but rather it's still finished in the same piano black finishes here that would attract a gross ton of fingerprints. And it's also quite hard, so yeah, this will not give your elbows a comfortable time. So overall, when you look at the cockpit area of this Mirage G4, you'll see that you're surrounded pretty much by hard plastics and some touches of piano black finishes and some silverish and grayish accents here and there for some splash of color. But yeah, the dashboard materials, all hard plastics, not really unexpected, guys, because well, this is still a city car, an econo city car. So yeah, this is par for the course, pretty much expected from regular econo car. Now let's head over to the back seat and see what kind of space or if there's any toys that can be found in the back seat of the Mirage G4. Now when you get to the back seat of the Mirage G4, I'm quite surprised that for such a small city car, it's got a good amount of space right here at the back. I'm 5'6", guys, and as you could see, I got around 9 to 10 inches of knee room before my knee touches the seat back here. This is, by the way, my driving seat position, and for my legroom, I got a great amount of legroom as well. The headroom, though, is a little bit on the tight side. I'm only looking at around 4 inches of headroom before my head touches the headliner, and I am 5'6", guys, so somebody who's taller than me, like maybe 5'10" or upwards, would have a little bit of a pinch right here at the back seat. They're better off sitting at the front passenger side. You could put 2 average size adults here at the back, pretty easy. You could put a third one in a pinch, but the third guy has to be on the smaller side or maybe has to be just a kid. You also have a little bit of a center tunnel here in the center, so you also have to keep that in mind. Now for toys, you don't really get too much toys at the back seat of this Mirage G4, and it's not really that expected given the price point. You do get a center armrest here with a couple of cup holders, a third cup holder that's found here in the center. That's if you don't get the dealer option center armrest, but you don't get a dome light, you don't get USB charging ports, 12-volt charging ports, and other whatnot like that. You also don't get a map pocket here at the back, but on the passenger side, you do get a small pocket there to park some of your stuff. So yeah, overall for a back seat of let's say an econo city car, the Mirage G4 is perfectly decent, guys. So is it worthwhile to pick up one of these current generation Mirages rather than to wait for the next generation? Well, if you're just looking for an affordable city car that can take you from point A to point B in relatively affordable comfort and with some creature comforts to boot, then yes, it's worth picking up one of these current generation units while there are still some awesome deals going on for this car. It may not win in the beauty contest or drag races, but when it comes to the fuel economy, practicality, and usability departments, it's one of the giants in the segment. Thanks for watching.